Today we've got some West Coast polling for the general election. And if these results are at all accurate, there's definitely going to be a surprise. So I had a few people mention this poll to me. I finally got around to taking a look at it. It came out last week and the data is from mid-April and it's from the Independent Center. And the pollster they used was the Bullfinch Group. I can't say I'm familiar with them, but we'll come back to that at the very end. So what does this poll have to say? Well, first off, the states that they polled were Washington, Oregon, and California. Plus, they also threw in Alaska and Hawaii. Now, those are not usually states we get polling from, so to get them all at once, I think is worth taking a look at. However, you might see here that the sample size in each of these individual states is only 250 registered voters. That is a very low sample size. You don't really often see anything under the 400s. So just a 250 sample size comes out to a 6.2% margin of error. And that's plus or minus in either direction. So I think it goes without saying, definitely take this with a grain of salt. I'm not saying to believe this. I'm not saying to disregard all of it. I'm just going to go through it and see what it shows. So this was from April 16th to the 23rd. So they start with a couple of screening questions, and then they have the 5 states where they polled each 250 registered voters. Now, I'm not going to cover everything, but I'm going to cover some of the highlights. The first actual question is, at this time next year, do you think that you will personally be better or worse off than you are today? There is some optimism here. Total better off is at 56. Worse off is at 25. Now, if we look at the 5 states, of course, I would expect Alaska to be the reddest of these states, and they are just slightly more pessimistic than the other 4. But the other 4 are close to being in line. Hawaii does have the lowest that say worse off at 18. The second question asks the same thing about the entire country. This is more pessimistic. 41% in total say better off, 35 say worse off. This time California is the most positive at 49 to 30. How about the approval rating for Joe Biden? Across all 5, he's at 45 approve and 51 disapprove. I would expect him to do his worst in Alaska, and he is at only 33% there, 60% disapprove. He's at a net 19% positive in California. Hawaii, he's net 7. However, in Oregon, he's at a net 8% disapproval rating, and it drops off a cliff in Washington. Biden is 20 points underwater there at only a 39% approval. So for whatever reason, Washington is closer to Alaska than its neighbor Oregon on what it thinks of Biden. Next, they ask about the approval rating for Congress, and there's nothing surprising here. Everybody hates Congress. 25% approve, 66 disapprove. The next question asks about political ideology, and they've got a 0 through 10 scale, with 0 being progressive or strong Democrat, and 10 being a conservative strong Republican. And averaging out all the states, it comes out to right in the middle at about 4.9. If you look at the two extremes, it's split. 14% are at strong Democrat and 14% are at strong Republican. There's nothing overwhelmingly different across the 5 states. Alaska is a little bit higher. It has a 5.5, which makes it a little bit closer to being a strong Republican. California is the closest to being a strong Democrat at 4.5. Hawaii is at 4.7. Oregon is at 4.6. And Washington slightly leaning toward the Republican side at 5.2. Now I'm going to skip over to some of the next section. Let's get down to the Biden versus Trump data. This asks which candidate's economic policies are more concerning to you. To me, that's an unusual type of wording. I would rather ask which candidate you favor more as opposed to which you're more concerned about. But they do have it split. 44% are more concerned about Trump's economic policies, 45% for Biden. As expected, Alaska is much more concerned about Biden, 52 to 37. California and Hawaii are more concerned about Trump by double digits. Oregon is at a narrow 3% concerned about Trump. But in Washington, here we go again. This is right in line with Alaska. 52% are more concerned about Biden's economic policies, 38 for Trump. The next question asks about which immigration and border policies are more concerning. This is again pretty close. 45% are more concerned about Biden, 43 for Trump. The breakdown of the states mostly reflects the previous question. And the next one asks about which environmental policies are more concerning. This one, Trump has the clear advantage or disadvantage in this particular wording. He's at 47 to 36. This time in all the states except Alaska, they're more concerned with Trump than Biden on this particular topic. Even Washington is at 9 points more concerned about Trump. Now we get into the head-to-head matchup between Biden and Trump, including leaners. The total Biden vote is 50%. The total Trump vote is 43. In Alaska, Trump is ahead by 19, 55 to 36. In California, Biden is ahead by 25, 59 to 34. Hawaii, Biden is ahead by 19, 57 to 38. In Oregon, Biden is ahead by 12, 52 to 40. And all the way at the end, we've got an unassuming Washington that shows Trump with a 1-point lead, 46 to 45. That right there defies all expectations. Considering Biden won the state by 19 points in 2020, 2020, it would seem nearly impossible to imagine it flipping and going for Trump. If you try to match it up to the previous questions we've taken a look at on this poll, Washington was a little bit softer on being against Trump, but even considering that, showing Trump in the lead is completely unexpected. The next question asks those that are voting for Trump, is your vote in support of Trump or against Biden? 77% are for Trump, 21% are against Biden. The only thing that stands out here is in Hawaii, 94% are in favor of Trump, 6% are against Biden. Next, they ask for Biden voters, is your vote in support of Biden or against Trump? This is a lot closer, 57% are for Biden, 40% are against Trump. This one, the outlier, is actually in Oregon. 48% are for Biden, 50% are against Trump. So some interesting data here, but what about if we add in third parties? So they throw in Kennedy, Stein, and West, and then the results are 38% for Biden, 36% for Trump. So it does get much more narrow with the third parties. In the individual states, it's still a big lead for Trump. In Alaska, it's a big lead for Biden. In California, Hawaii does get down to 8 points for Biden. In Oregon, it turns into 11 points for Biden. And how about at the end, Washington State actually expands for Trump. It goes up to a 5-point advantage, 40-35. Kennedy pulls in 13. I'm usually open to a range of different outcomes, but there's no way I would be able to believe that just that state has decided to go that far for Trump. It's hard to say exactly why their data shows that. To me, it seems like they didn't really poll much of King County or the Seattle area. If you take that out, then I would be able to believe these results. But even if they did underpoll some deep blue areas, based on the other questions in this poll, some of this does seem conflicting. So maybe their model for Washington is off, or they did some improper weighting, or maybe somehow it's just a mistake, because that seems close to an impossible swing in 4 years in one state that is fairly blue on paper. And there is a little bit more to this poll, but I'm going to skip down here to the demographics section. So here we've got gender, age, ethnicity, and race. You can see if anything jumps out to you here as being an outlier. Then down here we've got the party ID and ideology, but the easy one that I'm going to focus on is the 2020 vote. So here again, compared to the other states, Washington jumps out. And again, Biden won the state in 2020 by 19 points. For this poll, the respondents only had Biden up by 5, 45-40. So it does seem like an oversampling of Trump voters and an undersampling of Biden voters. But I still don't think that explains everything. The sample size also being only 250, I think is a red flag. So I don't really buy this poll, especially in Washington. It doesn't mean that it can't shift toward Trump. That's a possibility. But when you start getting into a double-digit shift, and when that shift is not completely in line with other states in that region, then it's only natural to have a lot of questions. So I don't think all the data here is just useless. I think it's nice to take a look at these 5 states in one poll. I wish they could have at least doubled the sample size. But this is what we've got from the Independent Center. And as I mentioned at the beginning, they went through the Bullfinch group to do this polling. Here it is right here. It's not one I'm familiar with. I couldn't find any polling history on 538. Maybe there's something lurking here that explains everything, but that's what we've got in this poll. Hopefully we get a lot more polling on these West Coast states. And before this poll, even after, I don't think Trump voters are thinking Washington is on the radar. But according to this poll, which I don't think a lot of people are going to accept, it actually is a competitive state. So that's it for this West Coast polling. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this pollster? Of course, the sample size is a problem, but with some conflicting data here, why is Washington an outlier in favor of Trump? Let me know what you think down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.